Breaking news. Kodak is forced to disclose they might be dying. Sony might be losing the most important contract for the Apple iPhone camera. Sigma leaks an amazing lens, a Bokeh monster, a 200 f2, and Panasonic leaks the Ricoh GR4, which might be an RX100 killer. I'll tell you all about it, but first I want to thank my sponsor, Squarespace. Start at squarespace.com/Tony when you need any type of website. You're starting a business, you want to show off your photography portfolio, your video reel, maybe it's even a personal project that you want to look great on the web. Squarespace.com/Tony will get you set up with a gorgeous website, a custom domain, your own custom email addresses. You can sell products, take appointments from clients. Everything you can imagine starts at squarespace.com/Tony. Try it out completely free, no credit card required. When you love it, the coupon code Tony will get you 10% off. Thanks for sponsoring me, Squarespace. Now, let's talk about this interesting announcement from Kodak.
Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time.
Based on the headlines from CNN, it sure sounds foreboding. It sounds like they're finally dying after more than 125 years. But the truth is a little more intricate than the headlines. Let's talk some numbers first. In 2024, Kodak's revenue was $1 billion. Yeah, they're still making money. They're not dead. They're selling a lot of film and they're licensing the Kodak name to some junk, but they're making money. Their operational EBITDA, just a measure of profitability, was only about $26 million though. So you can see not huge margins on what they're doing, but they're live and they're making money. Here's a catch. They have $477 million in loans that are going to be due in May of 2026. And because that's less than a year out now, while they're doing their quarterly earnings announcements, they have to address potential concerns about the inability to pay this off. After all, with $26 million in profit, it's going to be a little tough to pay off almost $500 million in loans. But they actually do have a plan, and I did some research, and it seems pretty viable to me. Now, first, Kodak has $155 million in cash. So that can knock off about a third of their debt right there. They also have $3.7 billion in pension money. Now, a pension is basically a retirement account for employees, right? And when you're working for Kodak, they would take some money and put it into this pension fund. And then when you retire, they would pay it out to you slowly and perhaps your spouse or other survivors. It's basically what the United States has replaced with things like a 401k or an IRA, but old companies used to self-fund these really big pensions. Kodak's $3.7 billion pension fund is huge because they have been around for a long time. But they're doing the math, and Kodak is saying they only need $2.5 billion to continue to pay off all their projected benefits for their retired employees. So their pension is overfunded by $1.2 billion, which is a lot of money, much more than they owe, right? So why not take that extra money and use it to pay off the debt? This is something they can actually do. They can recover the excess part of their pension. But when they do that, they're going to have to pay a lot of taxes. Kodak is estimating that after it's all said and done, they'll be left with about $500 million. So they'll completely be able to pay off that $477 million debt. So why would, in their quarterly earnings announcement, would they be saying that they were at risk of collapse? Well, they're saying it's just sort of accounting language because this conversion of the remaining pension money isn't guaranteed. It needs to be approved. If it doesn't get approved, things could be a problem. But even if some oversight board decides that they need more than $2.5 billion in their pension, it's probably not going to be $3.7 billion that they need. They'll probably be able to get some amount of money and have plenty to pay off their debts. And I think the Kodak brand still has quite a bit of value left into it, and film is getting more popular every day. Now let's talk about the amazing Sigma 200 f2. I've always dreamed of having a 200 f2 because, well, I love my 70-200 f2.8, but a full stop more bokeh is absolutely insane. Now, other 200 f2s exist. They're big and heavy and extremely expensive. So Sigma making one means it's probably going to be a lot less expensive. I think of this as a portrait and fashion lens. It could also be used for sports, maybe not courtside sports, but field sports, midfield where you need a lot of background separation, or more likely things like motorsports where you kind of know exactly where your subjects are going to be and they're not coming in and going out too far. Now, Sony suffered a pretty big blow this week. There's some information that indicates that Apple might be switching who they get their camera sensors from, because right now Apple kind of quietly uses Sony sensors in all their iPhones. And you know what? Apple sells a whole lot of iPhones and each one has 4 cameras in it. So that's a lot of product to be buying from Sony. But US President Donald Trump has an initiative to encourage companies to move manufacturing and source materials from the United States. Samsung, also a semiconductor manufacturer that makes camera sensors, competes with Sony in this field, has a manufacturing facility in Austin, Texas, my hometown. Apple sounds like they're going to switch over to US manufactured Samsung chips away from Sony. Now that also opens up a whole lot of questions, like how might this change the image quality in the iPhone, which is actually the world's most popular camera? There are some hints that indicates that you might get even more dynamic range out of a new type of sensor. These new iPhone sensors could potentially have 20 stops of dynamic range. Apple has this big push to be able to do like more cinematic video, and that extra dynamic range would really help. We're probably not going to see this until the launch of the iPhone 18. Finally, Panasonic seems to have leaked the Ricoh GR4. Now, there's a lot of photos of this camera, and that makes me feel like it's absolutely realistic. This is a refinement of the GR3, which was an extremely popular street photography camera, which is one of the most fun cameras to use. It's a fixed lens camera, so you can't change the lens. Some people call it a point and shoot, but that doesn't mean it can't be serious. And people do use this for very serious street photography, and these refinements seem to make it even better at that. First, physically the lens is smaller, so it's much more pocketable now, and in fact it looks more pocketable than the Sony RX100 that I just reviewed, because the lens is simply shallower. This is an APS-C sensor with 25 megapixels. Now the lens is 18 f2.8, which in 35mm terms is equivalent to 27mm f4. So that's going to give you significantly less background separation than you would get out of that Sony camera. But that Sony camera is $5,100, and I think this is going to be about $1,000. It has a 2-stop ND filter built into it, so you'll be able to drag the shutter in bright situations, something that I love to do for street photography. It supports 4K 30 video, nothing exciting there. The autofocus is supposed to be significantly improved. And coming from Panasonic and seeing all the improvements they've made in their other cameras, yeah, I totally believe that. The touchscreen is going to be fixed, which seems wild after we've seen the reception of Sony's fixed touchscreen on their street photography camera. Panasonic is giving us internal memory, 53 gigabytes of internal memory, especially if you're shooting JPEGs. That should be fine for even a full week of work. And it will support a micro SD card in case you want removable media still, or you want backups. And assuming this is true, thank you so much, Panasonic, for finally giving us internal memory. I thought you guys might be the ones to do it, but this is huge. It means you can never forget your memory card. It means nothing stops you. I expect this $1,000 camera to be released in August 2025. In the comments down below, let me know what you think of the upcoming Ricoh and our other photo news, and don't forget to check out our sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace.com/Tony gets you started into a very simple setup process for a website. Something that seems complex is actually very easy. With just a few clicks, you can pick from one of their beautiful templates, customize it with your own information, add things like a store, a photography portfolio, a video reel, show off your work, and make it look beautiful. So much more beautiful than social media can possibly provide. Don't take my word for it. Head to squarespace.com/Tony. Try it out yourself, completely free, no credit card required. Not one of those traps where they charge you no matter what. You can really just try this out completely free. When you love it, and I know you will, the coupon code Tony will get you 10% off. Thanks for sponsoring us, Squarespace. Bye.